Hey, good morning or afternoon, whatever. This is Pastor Rick. I am with Bethel Community Church, and I am for him and his. And today I'm sharing with you our Bethel Sundays message. Just wanted to make it more available to you, and so I'm pre-recording this, but it's basically the same message as you would have heard in person. Hope you can make it in person. Today I want to talk about green stuff. No, not money. Like money, but don't have a lot to talk about there. But I'd like to talk about the green stuff that is known as kryptonite. Going to take you back a little bit, maybe not that far, but as you will recall, Superman, who was awesome and could do amazing things, did have one weakness. And it was this green glowing stuff called kryptonite. Remember it? So he could jump tall buildings with a single bound, and he was faster than a speeding train or a bullet, I guess. But if he was near this glowing green stuff, he just got all weak, and it was his weakness. Well, we have kryptonite in our walk of faith with Jesus as well. And, kryptonite can be anything that really causes us to be weak in our walk of faith. One form of kryptonite that I particularly want to focus on, one form of green stuff, is an attitude known as complacency. Now, complacency can take on many forms, but here is a definition of complacency that I would like for us to focus on today for the purpose of this message. Complacency in Rick Talk means to simply accept what is wrong or less than adequate and to not care to seek what could be. So it's just saying, if the light bulb is out, okay, the light bulb's out, and you don't change it. It's one definition. For a moment, I want you to think with me concerning your own health, your physical health, not about COVID-19. Okay, let's please not talk about COVID-19, but let's say back problem, okay? Did you know that at some point, about 70% of us Americans will experience back problems? 70%, that's huge, right? And we will experience it to such an extent that it requires medical intervention of some type. Maybe not surgery, but medical intervention of some type. I'm one of those 70%. A few years back, I blew out some discs, like 4 or 5, and I had a bad situation. And I went to one doctor and he said, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't do a thing. And then I went to another doctor and said, oh yeah, we can do something, but and you're going to be down for like 3 months and all this, and you're going to have a 12 to 18 inch slit down your back. And then I went to another doctor who said, we can fix this. Do you really want to? We can fix this, and we can fix it well. Do you want to accept moving on with this pain, or do you want to try and get it fixed? Well, my friends, why would I not take that deal? Why would I not accept that deal when there's a real possibility of cure? Well, my friends, the danger of complacency is that it ignores the possibility or dismisses the possibility of cure. My friends, this morning, whether you are a believer in Jesus or a follower of Jesus, and I want you to know there's a difference. You see, the demons believe in Jesus too, but they're sure not a follower, right? So you can be a believer in Jesus and not a follower. But whether today you are a believer at this stage in your journey or a follower of Jesus, there's good news. There's good news about the green stuff that weakens your faith. You do not have to put up with that green glowing stuff. You don't have to put up with that green glowing ooze. The kryptonite you don't have to put up with that which weakens your strength in walking with and serving and experiencing the Spirit of God living and pulsating in and through you. Isaiah 60, verses 1 through 2, gives us this. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. My friends, he's on your side. He doesn't want you to walk in defeat. The Hebrew word for glory in this particular passage, as is used here, means splendor, greatness, wealth, might, abundance. Did you catch that? Abundance, honor, majesty, heaviness upon. You see, my friends, God is not interested in just your getting by. He does indeed want you to prosper and to overcome. His Spirit is upon you and thrive as his kid and as a reflection of his glory now in you and upon you, in and through and all over you. He wants that for you. You don't need to struggle in your walk with Jesus. He hasn't called us to struggle in our walk with him. Rick talk, okay? His glory refers to all that God is. I mean, no holding back. His abundance. It is the weight of his greatness bearing down upon and all over you. And if you will, the fullness of his Spirit thriving in you. My friends, this morning, as you open your heart, not only to God, but to yourself, can you honestly say, his Spirit is thriving in you? Can you honestly say, I am growing in him? Can you say, I am overcoming because of him and through him? Do you feel and sense his glory in you each and every day, reflecting off of you into the lives of others? Or, as you look at your heart, and as you allow God to examine your heart and ask him to, you find yourself still struggling with attitudes and fears and frustrations and unaddressed sin, tolerated, known sin in your own life, and strongholds that have been there for years that are weakening your faith, that are holding you back from the fullness of his Spirit filling you. As you look at your heart, do you see a lot of green stuff still oozing, glowing, green stuff? Well, Pastor Rick, how do we move on? Yeah, maybe I do see that. How do we get a handle on this evil green stuff, this spiritual kryptonite? Well, you know me. I'm a deep theologian. So here's what we're doing today. We are doing what any good deep theologian would do. We are taking a look at how Superman tried to handle his kryptonite, his green stuff. There's a couple ways he tried. Okay. In the end, not real successful. First strategy was avoidance, right? Hey, the evil green stuff, the kryptonite, it's bad for me, it weakens me, just avoid it. Don't go near it. He just mostly tried to just avoid it. Just not go near this stuff. And, likewise, for some of us, if we have that kryptonite of sin that we have still tolerated in our lives, or that kryptonite of fear and frustration, despair, some of us, we can just ignore that. We can simply handle it by not going near it, avoiding the triggers, if you will. I had a friend that I've been working with, still am, he had a problem with drinking. And so I spent time with him. He's working hard to overcome it. Um, he hasn't had a lapse in quite a while now. I'm hoping he's going to make it. But he knows it's always going to be a challenge for him. We were out on a bike ride, and we were riding through Yellow Springs, and it was a hot summer day, and we had stopped there at the Yellow Springs bike station, and right next to the trail was this outdoor, festive bar and restaurant, and there was the smell of beer just in the air. I don't know if you've ever realized that. I smell beer, okay? But anyway, he was just commenting to me. He goes, "Now, see, Rick, that's what I can't go near." He said, "If I just walk in that place and get in that vibe of the atmosphere, not just the beer, but the vibe of the atmosphere and the drinking that I associate with it, as that was the way I had a good time." He said, "I will go down and I will have a relapse." So his solution was avoidance. And don't get me wrong, that's not wrong. That's not bad. It's necessary. Avoidance is a good approach, but it's not so good if it is your only approach. Hey, look at Superman. It was not always successful for him, right? The challenge with this strategy of just avoiding, however, is that the main reason that which weakens you even has any kind of power or pull upon you is because it is really about the desire in your heart. For it's really about what your heart still really wants. The core desire of your heart, if it is contrary to that which God says is good, is going to be the root cause of your green stuff and its power over you. You can avoid it as much as possible, but in the end, it still remains in your heart. It's in your heart, in your heart's desire. That green stuff doesn't come from planet Krypton, guys. Okay? And a strategy of avoidance only changes your circumstance. It does nothing to change your heart. That's what you desire. If you practice avoidance because your heart has been changed, you got the double strength. But if you practice avoidance and your heart hasn't changed, you are still at risk of being weakened by your spiritual kryptonite. Another strategy that Superman used was what I'll call shielding or protecting. Superman could always make sure that known kryptonite was encased in lead, right? Because lead shielded Superman from the harmful effects of kryptonite. However, the problem with that shielding is simply this: that which is intended to protect you can also hide the presence of kryptonite or sin or fear or frustration or whatever the green oozing stuff is in your life, in your walk of faith with Jesus. Our shields can really just be masks, hiding us from what is really real in our real condition. Placing more value on religion, for instance, or than actual faith and obedience and trust in Him, or just I say, going to church, or just doing this my own private walk with Jesus, which is sacred. And it might help you, but how does it help somebody else? Your own private walk in which you share the responsibility to help others and accountability to others not. You can hide the green stuff, but the problem is it's going to be closer at hand than you care to face, or that you realize, or that you even care to admit. without responsibility to God and to others and accountability to God and to others, you're going to hide the stuff you don't want to see. You're not going to admit it. My friends, as you tolerate your own sin, and as you come up with ways to justify it, hide it with an attitude that kind of says, well, it's not good, but it's okay. I can manage it. It's not been a real problem for me yet. I can manage this stuff. That green stuff, it starts glowing on me and it makes me weak, but I can kind of step back a little bit when it raises, and then I can just hide it, put a shield around it. Well, it didn't work so well for Superman because there were times when it just snuck up on him, right? You got to bone up on your Superman knowledge. And just like Superman, when you are off guard or unaware and the shields don't go up, or the shields are not maintained, or you can't maintain your facade or your mask, and then you are forced to deal with the green radiating stuff again, the spiritual kryptonite that so drastically weakens your walk and relationship with Jesus. My friends, our closeness, our intimacy, our walk of faith is not based on our being religious or doing good things or even doing church. It is not based first on what we do or how we act. Now, let me repeat that. It is not based first on what we do or how we act, but rather how we are in our heart because of his presence, because of his glory living in our hearts and being walked out in faith and trust and obedience. If your heart is right, then you will say and do and act in the right way. That's the core. And that, my friends, is the place where spiritual kryptonite needs to be defeated so that it will not weaken you, my friends. Good things we do, faithful religious practices we follow, can help us set up an artificial and very ineffective shield that can actually blind us to the sin we wish to ignore, at least for a while. Let's go back to our physical health for a moment. If you went to the doctor, let's say, and you had a routine checkup, and you have your consult afterwards, and he's shaking his head, or giving you signals that something's not right. What do you want? Do you want him to be forthright with you and tell you what he might have found? Or do you want him to shield you from that information? My friends, don't shield yourself from what you need to know and what you might need to know to cure you and to heal you and maybe even save your life. You would want to know, right? Why? Because there might be hope. There might be a way to bolster and strengthen your body to defeat this evil intruder that would weaken you and potentially one day even threaten your very living. My friends, when we shield ourselves from spiritual kryptonite, protect ourselves by ignoring it, we are at risk. Listen carefully. Perhaps one of the greatest threats to our continued walk of faith with Jesus is ignorizing. Hey, remember, I'm Pastor Rick. I can invent words. Ignorizing, but I think you know what it means. Learning not to care, being complacent. Complacent about what? The green stuff. And especially about the sin, which you tolerate, which weakens your walk. By giving up and not recognizing, you ignorize it. And you give up and not recognize that God has actually offered a remedy for all our sin. Oh, this is good stuff, my friends. Not just the sin of the repentant seeker of salvation, but also, listen carefully, but also for the struggling believer. the believer struggling to be a true follower, a true disciple of Jesus. If you find today that you have spiritual kryptonite, the green glowing stuff oozing in your life, showing up, sin entangling you and weakening your walk of faith and obedience and trust with Him, if you have less power and more struggle in following Jesus, and they are with things that you should not really be struggling with anymore, do not give up and accept. Do not become complacent. God is not interested in you being defeated. He is interested in you being victorious through Him, His shed blood upon the cross, and His victory over death through His resurrection. Hebrews 12:1 says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles." Throw off stuff that weakens your faith, and if there is sin, by all means, throw that off. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. We're in this to win. We're not in this to win just a part of the race. We're in to go all the way to the finish and win. Complacency, remember, in Rick Talk, means to simply accept what is wrong or accept what is less than adequate and not care to seek what could be. He wants you to seek what could be. The good news this morning is simply this: there is a better way than just avoiding the green stuff. There is a better way than just shielding yourself from the green stuff. The best way, the bester way, another word I invented. In fact, the only way to completely kill the green stuff of sin and the kryptonite impact it has upon you is to eradicate the desire that remains, the heart desire to hang on to that which still separates and weakens your walk with Jesus. And my friends, you simply cannot do that all by yourself. Only God can through His work of grace in you. Are you frustrated that you can't kick that habit that's killing you and others? Are you frustrated that you can't overcome the gnarliness that you might experience sometimes? Are you frustrated that you find you're more angry all the time than happy, than joyful? Are you frustrated that you can't seem to go beyond yourself? My friends, you can't take care of that just yourself. God can. When you need that, when you are so aware that, hey, I can't go this any longer. As it says in Romans, "Oh, wretched man that I am. I want to do right, but in the end I wind up doing wrong. Who can save me from this?" He can. Ask God to fill you more and more with His Spirit so that there is less and less of you and more of Him. Ask God to fill you more and more with His Spirit so that your heart becomes completely His and the green stuff can't stay there anymore. So that your desires are His desires. So much so that you can hardly tell the difference between what you want and God wants now. There's no struggle. And what He wants in and through you. My friends, church, this is for you. Disciple of Jesus, just as the first disciples needed this and were ineffective until they got this, we need this today more than ever. Psalms 51, 7 through 12 says this: "Cleanse me with hyssop." Hyssop was basically, just a side note, a branch that was used as a means of transferring the blood of the sacrifice to the sinner. Cleanse me with hyssop, the psalmist says, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. We're not talking about skin here, my friends, but your soul, the seat of your desire, your heart. Let me hear joy and gladness again. Let the bones you have crushed rejoice. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my iniquity. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. That's a prayer that only God can and will answer when you really pray it. Ephesians 5:18 says, do not get drunk on wine, earthy, which let's just say that's earthly human substitutes for real happiness and joy, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. And Luke 11:13, if you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give the Holy Spirit to those who ask him? Do you need his Spirit deeper and more fully within you today? You don't have to struggle with the green stuff. You don't have to be like Superman and it weakens you. You can overcome because of him living in you, so that there is more of him and less of you. Ask God to touch your heart and fill your need today. Hey, I'm Pastor Rick. I am with Bethel Community Church, and I am for him.